welcome to the Gumboot garden. It is coming up on that time already where we need to start thinking about sowing our winter seeds. Now, I have a bit of a job to do before I get started with sowing those seeds, and that is to clean out all of my seedling pots. It's been a few years since I have done this. I've just been rinsing them out, but it is time to give them a nice, good clean. And that should kind of get rid of all of the bacteria and bad things that we don't want that may be lingering in those pots. And I'll set them out to dry, and then we will get started sowing our winter seeds. Once you've washed them off, then you're just gonna toss them into that vinegar and water and let them soak for, technically it should be a half an hour. I'm probably just going to let them soak for like 10 minutes. Instead of setting up a bucket with vinegar and water in it, you can also use a spray bottle. Just spray them with the vinegar water mixture and let them dry in the sun, and that's completely fine as well. That's probably what I should be doing.
This was quite the tedious process. So I recommend that in order for you to stay organized, you do all of this immediately after using your pots. It's so much easier to rinse them clean right after the moist soil is coming out of them. So all you have to do is just rinse them and soak them, then let them dry before you store them because you don't want any of that mold growing on them while they're being stored. And then when it comes time to sowing seeds, you can just pull them straight out and they're ready for use. And it is so much nicer because rather than having to do this and knowing that you have this tedious task, you can just get right into sowing your seeds. Luckily on this day, I had my pup Rocco to keep me company because it took such a long time. I cleaned around 100 pots this day, let them soak and dry, and by that time, the sun had completely gone down. So sowing my seeds had to wait another day. But what I will talk about tomorrow is what I plan on sowing and how I plan to set it all up.
What do you think, Rocco? Did we do a nice job cleaning those pots? High five. Yeah. High five. Good boy. Good boy. I have set out all the seeds that I plan on planting for this winter, and I've also done a sketch of my garden. This is my main garden section. I have listed all of the winter vegetables I plan on growing, and then I've just put them into the different sections or different beds that I would like them to be. I'm also planting some in multiple areas this year to see if the difference in sun or soil affects their growth. And I'm actually planting a lot more root crops this year than I did in previous years. In previous years, I'd like to grow more broccoli and cauliflower, and I even wanted to try cabbage, which I haven't done yet, but I'm not doing as many of those this year because I am going to be away for a couple months in the winter, and I don't want all of those crops to ripen while I'm gone and just have it be a waste. But the root crops can stay in the ground until I'm ready to pick them, and yeah, some of them won't be ready until spring, which works out even better. But I'm just gonna head outside with my measuring tape and notebook, and I'm gonna take measurements of the beds, which I should have this written down already, but I haven't. I will meet you back somewhere with my seeds and potting soil, and we'll get to planting then.
It's been about a week since I sat down and planned out the winter garden. We've had some really bad weather in New Zealand. So we had a cyclone that went directly over the top of New Zealand, and here in Auckland we were lucky enough to not have that really hit us super hard. It hit a lot worse a little bit south of us, but the rain and the wind was still pretty bad, and my seedlings typically stay outside, so I didn't want to start the seedlings and then have the rain just kind of bounce them out of the soil. I had taken the measurements of my garden last week, but now I'm actually figuring out how many plants can fit in each of those areas. I'm just going to do a bit of math and then we'll start planting. onions can be planted about 4 inches apart. So if that's 57 divided by 4, so that's about 14 long. Leeks can be planted 5 to 7 inches apart. I think last year I did 7 inches, but they didn't get as big as I wanted them to be, and I actually thought it was a bit of a waste of space to have them so far apart. So this year I'm just going to plant them 5 inches apart. I'm going to do 2 rows of peas, which will take away 2 rows from here. 8 centimeters, so that's about 3 inches apart. This is the first time I'm planting peas, but I've watched the 1870s homestead. They had talked about planting peas, and they said in order to have peas to preserve for a year for a family, you need like 500 peas. So I'm just doing 100, and we'll see how many that grows for us to eat. Surely we can get a few dinners out of that. I feel like I should direct sow them. I think it says to direct sow them actually, but I have other things growing in there right now. Continually picking pea pods while young will result in more pods emerging and therefore more total harvest from each plant. I'm not overly fussed about the winter garden, to be honest. It keeps me entertained throughout the winter, but really I love the summer garden. So I've just planned that all out, and it is a lot more vegetables than I thought. But it's good because then hopefully I can store all this stuff and it will actually last us a long time. I really need to get planting, and we'll get this started. Need to keep this open though.
First, and I think easiest thing for me to do is to start filling up some of those seed trays with some soil. And the soil I'm using is just a potting mix. This will keep nutrients in the soil a lot longer than if you're actually getting a seedling mix. So what I'm doing with these seed trays is I'm not filling them all the way to the top. I'm going to sprinkle the seeds on, and then I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of soil on the top of that. I just find that with seeds that are really small, it's easiest just to not make the indentation, because we want to make sure we aren't planting them too deep. We just want them, slightly below the soil surface. In the spring, I cut up some cardboard and used that for labels for my seeds. The one thing I didn't account for is the fact that whenever I watered it, the label was going to get wet as well. So they didn't work out very well. So what I'm doing this time is I've just taken an old milk carton. And I'm just going to cut pieces here, and we're going to label the plastic bits and stick them in. No, this is for me. These are mine. Can I have that again? Thank you. So I'm just going to start by planting some brown onions. These are Pukekohe long keepers. So these are a popular one to be planting in New Zealand. I know there's plenty of other brands that you may find in your area, but these are good to be planted in either the fall or the springtime. So I can do these year round. This year I didn't do any onions during the summertime, but I'm going to do a bunch over the winter time. So we're going to get these planted. And I'm not going to do just like one in each of these cells. I'm just going to kind of sprinkle a bunch of seeds and get a rough idea of the amount that I'm going to plant. And then when they start to sprout and get, maybe 4 to 6 inches high, I'll transplant those into the garden. So I save the takeaway containers that we get when, I think it's usually either roast dinner or Chinese takeaway. And I can use both the tops and the bottoms to put my seed trays in. And each one of these will hold 2 6-cell trays. So, I'm not planting on a massive scale. So these work for me, and I just kind of set them out on the deck with my 2 trays in them, and then I can water from the bottom rather than having to disturb the seeds all the time. So the only time that I do water from the top is right at the beginning, just to make sure the soil is saturated, and then after that I just water straight into these trays. So my onions are done there. Now we'll move on to Brussels sprouts for those. Now Brussels sprouts for me, I'm not actually south enough or have a cold enough climate to have good Brussels sprouts. It doesn't frost here, but I try anyways. Last year I did try Brussels sprouts. I had a whole big patch of them, but they actually didn't, I only had like a you grow. So the one thing I didn't do, which it says actually right on here, it says to pinch out the leading shoot when the bottom sprouts are 1 to 2 centimeters in diameter. So that's about an inch, and that helps promote the bud's development. So I did not do that last year, and that's something that I will try and do this year. If I remember, I need to make a note. These are the Musselburgh leeks. I have loads of these, and these seeds just look exactly like the onion seeds. So we're just gonna plant these in. And again, I'm going to do multiple seeds in each cell tray. These say maturity, harvest 27 to 30 weeks, where these say 12 to 20. So actually, I may do some of these. I wasn't going to, but I may, because I want to see, like, I felt like maybe these took a long time and they just didn't work out for me. But these might, if they have a shorter harvesting time. So we will give some of these a go. These are like the tiniest little seeds. I'm not sure if you can even see them on my hand, but they're like tiny little yellow seeds. And they're so prolific as well. We're doing lettuce, swede, and spring onion next. I have to clean out my garden today, or at least start cleaning out my garden. From the storm, there's been a lot of things that have died, so I need to get that out of there, and then soon I'll be able to put more stuff in there, so I'm really excited. That's, I think, the best thing about living in a climate that is quite warm all year round, is that you can plant all year round. Things are just slower in winter. Let's see. I have Little Gem, or a Drunken Woman. No, 3 of each. You can direct sow lettuce. It's just, I think the thing is, like, I'm terrible at making sure that the tops of the soil is just like as wet as it needs to be. So all the seeds that are like very tiny just don't do well when it comes to me having to water them all the time. Okay, swede. And my spring onions, I just have the ones that were left from last year. So what did I say, 80 of these I want to plant. Should be able to get those into these last 2 trays I have here. This winter I'm planting a lot of root vegetables, and it's because I'm going to be going home to the States for a couple months over our winter, or the States summer. When I'm in the States, because it is summer, I plan on trying to get a few quick crops in at my parents' house to see what I can get planted and harvesting from in the 7 weeks. They have been telling me that there are quite a few critters around that I might have to compete with to kind of keep them away from my crops, but I'm up for the challenge. I have 2 different kinds of beets, which these are the same ones that I planted before for spring. I have the Super King beets, which are a red beet. It says super reliable. And I have the golden beets, which the golden beets are actually my favorite. They don't have as strong of a taste. And that's what I like, because I'm not overly keen on beets, but I know Allie and the kids quite like them. And they like when I can them, so, and I actually eat them when I can them.
And if you do have any quick crop ideas for me to grow in those 7 weeks I'm at home, well, actually 6 weeks, because we'll be spending some time in New York City, but put them in the comments below. I'll brainstorm some of my own ideas as well, and when the time comes, I'll post a video showing you how they all progress during that time. I may begin some plants from seeds, but others just buy as starts from the store.